Hello, EduMagicians. Welcome to the EduMagic Podcast with your host, Dr. Sam Fessich. Dr. Sam is a professor of education, author of EduMagic, and a pumpkin spice latte fan. This podcast is designed for pre-service teachers. Remember, friends, teaching doesn't begin at graduation, but during that first class at 8 a.m. Let's get this party started.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jacob Chastain, host of the Teach Me Teacher podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Hello, EduMagicians, and welcome back to another episode of the EduMagic Podcast. Today, I have with me Dr. Will. You've been asking for episodes about how do I get started in my online business? What are my first steps to getting my side hustle on? Well, Dr. Will is the go-to guru when it comes to anything side hustle, living your best life, and making the money that you deserve when it comes to teaching and learning in the online space. If you don't already subscribe to his podcast, friends, you need to smash that subscribe button wherever you listen to podcasts. On the Dr. Will Show, he interviews educators and entrepreneurs, trailblazers in the education field that are making the money that they deserve and living their best life. Dr. Will is a documentarian for the EduMatch publishing company. He has a documentary out there called The Edupreneur, and you can find it on Vimeo. You can rent or buy, and he's going to tell us more about that later in the show. He's also featured in Forbes magazine. Dr. Will, welcome to the show. I am just so excited to have you on.
Well, Dr. Sam, thanks for bringing me on. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. So let's get started. Let's jump right in. Dr. Will, would you mind sharing with my listeners a little bit about your teaching journey, where you are now, and what your passion and your drive has been to push forward with edupreneurs and helping educators live their best life?
I actually started out in education. Wow. I graduated from film school, and I went home and I was thinking, what can I do that would give me some free time to write a script? And you always hear about people, waitressing or working in bars or something, and they do auditions. And I said, you know what? I could substitute teach. And that would give me free time. And I started doing that, and I enjoyed working with the students and ended up having a meeting, happenstance, with the Spanish teacher there. And she and I were talking, about my, interest and passion and Latin music. And I started working with her, and I would speak to her students. And then she told me, hey, we're having, there's going to be a state language fair. Would you be interested in working with our students for doing a dance? And I did. So had a great time working with kids after school, choreographed it and showed them how to, do this salsa routine, and just watching them, dive into this new experience was great. I had a great time with it, and the students did. They got a first place trophy for it. And yeah, it was like, wow, okay, kids. I was just nervous, like sitting in the stands watching them, and I was like, okay. And afterwards, I remember getting a letter in the mail, sort of a postcard, I guess, from the Career Center in my school, my alma mater, the University of Southern Mississippi. And it was about AmeriCorps Vista. And I looked at it and I said, wow, this is awesome. And I read more about it, applied, and I was actually accepted to a location in Boston. And next thing I know, I'm there. And then I started working for university over there, where Where my job was to work for Gear Up as a college coordinator, which essentially meant that I created mentoring programs and college prep programs for students of underrepresented groups. We started out like at 7th grade, sort of introducing them to the college process. What does all of that look like? So they would have a leg up in understanding what was coming down the road. And so in doing that, again, I was thinking about sort of my experiences and thinking about, how do I expose these students and open up their worldview? Because what a lot of times schools like to focus on are sort of academic deficiencies, or how can we sort of engage these students without understanding that for some students they're disengaged because they don't see the world being available to them, because their world is real. Their world is their block. Their world is their neighborhood, their city. They don't see where they belong in the grand scheme of things. And so for me, I said, okay, so we're going to take these kids to plays. When we go on college tours, we're not doing Boston. These kids can take a train, right? They can take a train to a school if they want to. We're going to upstate New York. We're going to, Hampshire College. We're going to all of these schools. We went to Maine and we went to New Hampshire, and all of these places, had the charter bus. And, the kids, I said, hey, got to dress up, you got to dress up your 7th graders. We got to put on, let them see who you are. And we went there, and to see their eyes open up and start to go, wow, okay, this is real. Like, this is a possibility for me. That was my window into, really working professionally in education. And from there, I took a detour to, grad school and trying the entrepreneurship thing, and eventually landing myself as an instructional technologist with the school district I work for now.
I have so many follow-up questions on that journey. So when you took students, you packed up the charter bus, you went to all those different colleges. What made it impactful for them whenever you saw their eyes light up or realize, hey, I have a world open to me, and it's bigger than my block, my city, my neighborhood? What types of experience do you think helped them see that?
When you're going on that college tour, you're in the 7th grade and you're walking around. Let's say when we went to University of Connecticut, very, very beautiful campus. It caught me off guard. I was like, oh my gosh, I would love to work for a university. Not thinking, Will, you do work for a university.
I was going to say, wait, in this journey, aren't we currently working at a university?
Yeah, you work at a university, right? It was a commuter university, so it didn't have a dorm. So people would come in. Yeah, it was a different experience. So people would come in and, take their classes, join, work, they were in clubs, did club stuff, but they would leave. But here I am. And then the university, it wasn't a terrible look university. It was just a university. But I mean, by now all universities and locations are not the same. So, so you're getting on this campus where you were at UConn, and you're looking at all of these buildings, and you're looking at the yard and the grass and the trees and all of this stuff. And this was at the time of the year where things were like just magically delicious outside, right? And so I was like, oh my, even I was like, oh my gosh, what is this? And so when you get there and they're actually talking to these students like, we want you here, right? Now, these are 7th graders. These students will not be able to apply for several years down the road. And they were literally being very serious with these students. and talking to them about what majors exist, what programs are available. They would have students talk to them, current students who would say, hey, I'm majoring in this and this is my program. These are my experiences. And then, they take you on the campus and we're, again, we're walking around, able to look inside dorms and all of those things. It was just like, okay. And, beforehand, of course, we were doing these sessions where I would talk to students about what college is and, difference between a college and university. And we would have different people from other universities come over that were either working at admissions or they worked in financial aid. So they were talking to them about this. So that was their exposure to the local universities. I would actually have people come over and speak to them about that. And so to get there and then have someone say, hey, do you know, what's the difference between a college and university? And have a student explain it, coherently and succinctly. And that person go, oh, wow. And I'm like, yeah, those are my students. I'm sitting here like, yeah. And for them to be taken seriously again at that age and no one speaking down to them and no one treating this like, we're doing it just to do this, so we don't look bad, but literally recruiting like they would any, older 11th graders, I guess, to have that experience when we go to these universities and ask the students and the students be prepared to answer those questions. And some of the questions that students were asked them, I was just really like, this is my thing right here. I work with teachers on who teach a lot of different subject areas and grade levels and all those things. But when I get a chance to work with CTE teachers, that is like my, we're getting ready to make it rain around here moment, because their subject areas are not about state level testing. It's not about the grades. Of course you don't want your kid to fail, but their focus is, how can I teach these students this material? How can this material be used to enrich and enliven their lives and point them into a direction that they can get really excited about in their life? And so that's how like I am with education. And when I was able to, really at a point to switch over, that was, how my focus, even now when I work with teachers. But it was just a really, interesting journey, because I didn't go the traditional route. And I have not taught in the classroom. And some teachers are like, what? When they find out, like, what? Because they have no clue. But I've spent time working, whether it's in grad school, taking classes on curriculum and classroom management, or reading, or going to different trainings at our school to figure out how do you deconstruct a standard, and understanding the RTI process, where not only do I know more and get better at my job, I can truly work with them in a way that they understand what I'm talking about.
I'm noticing a lot of thematic phrases in what you're sharing. So you talked a little bit about working with Gear Up, and you started to take a different path. Then you went to graduate school. You did the entrepreneur thing. You went to film school. You have all these three, seems like passion areas: education, entrepreneur, and film. And I think all of these three areas really merged into the edupreneur. And could you share a lot about the edupreneur and your passion for that project?
Yeah, it literally was born. The idea of a documentary came from, Dr. Sarah, the founder, CEO of EduMatch Publishing. I had her on my podcast, and I was interviewing her about her entrepreneurial journey, and she was dropping these gems. I was really excited, and I told her, I would love to write a book for you. I would love to be a part of your family, but I wrote the dissertation. I'm kind of done with long form writing. I'm good. I'm good. And she said, no, what about a documentary? And I said, what are you talking about? And it was her suggestion of, well, it's her idea of like, look, you already are doing these interviews with your documentary. I mean, with your podcast, you could actually interview people and we could put together a story, a narrative with that. And I was like, oh, okay, let me think about that a little more. Right. So I sat back and I said, let's do this thing. Well, she said, okay, well, let me give you a proposal. And, I go, I'm looking at it and I'm going, okay, getting ready to fill out this proposal sheet. And like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do with this? And the first thing that came to mind was one-to-one. How do you go one-to-one in a classroom? Because that's my day job. Yeah, my day job. But then I said, no, I'm good. I don't want to do it. I enjoy my job, and I really have enjoyed it since the COVID. It makes I odd to say that, but yeah, really have enjoyed my job since then. But I didn't want it didn't have the same passion about it, right? And just like a dissertation topic, you want to find something that when you don't feel like working on it, you work on it because the material draws you in. And that's when I said, I have to tell this story of educators becoming educational consultants or authors or course designers, taking the information and experience that they're already doing and monetizing it to create a side hustle. And that's where I said, let me do this. And I submitted the proposal, and Doc was like, yo, I like this. Let's do this. And from that, I just started thinking of my dream cast of who would I want to be in this thing. And some of the people that you may call an edu celebrity or, edu Twitter fab or whatever. Fab, yeah, some, yeah, some of these people are, like I already know, and I have their cell numbers and all that stuff. But some other people, I was like, yo, let me just see what'll happen. And I didn't know what to expect because this is not the normal education topic. I'm not talking about how you engage students. I'm not talking about how you use leadership to do X, Y, and Z. This is about asking people about what are they doing to get that money. Though I don't talk about money in the documentary, and I don't even in my podcast, I don't ask people, what's your rates, how much you get paid. But it was the whole idea of how are you doing this thing? And it was crazy because my lineup, when I was like, yo, you want to do this? Hey, will you do this? Yes, let's do that. Whoa. Okay. Yeah, asking for someone, oh, yo, whoa. And then I got to a point, I was looking at my lineup. I said, okay. I'm missing some people of color voices. I'm missing some people. And I asked Doc, I said, hey, do you know anybody? And she gave me Abby Futrell. And so I reached out to Abby Futrell, and then we had an initial conversation. And when I had that conversation with her, I said, oh, yeah, this is going to be right. And then, she signed the release form, and we did the interview. And after everything then we went into the editing process. But I knew something was special because my first interview was with Angela Myers, and I remember talking to her, and she at one point was saying how, look, I just had back surgery. I'm not going to be working for 6 weeks. I got to figure out how to make that up. And other things that she would share, I was like, this is getting personal around here. This is going to be good because I'm not expecting people to share what they are sharing. And there was some other really personal stuff that didn't make the documentary, but I was like, well, okay, okay, this is going to be different. This is going to be the people that you see them at conferences, you know, in the high profile dresses and the suits, you know, smelling like corporate America. You see these people there, but now you're going to see these people in a light that you have never seen them if you don't know them personally. Like Eric, if you don't know Eric, you see Eric at the conferences in the suits, always suited up. But you see him in a hoodie in a documentary, right? You're like, oh, okay, Eric, okay, casual Eric. But it's just really cool to see these people in ways you haven't seen them. You hear the experiences, them talking about work-life, family balance, and the whole idea of how do I create a business and what does that mean in terms of me as an educator and what I'm trying to provide, but also as a business person, what have I learned, you know, what you should do. And when those interviews started to unfold, I was really, really excited about it. And that's when we, you know, I handed over to Doc. I kind of gave her an outline of what I was looking for from the footage. And she went to work and we just went back and forth. And then we came up with sort of our first cut. We sent it over to everyone who was in the documentary, and who said, hey, I would like to see this. Can you add this? Can you do this? Can you do that? Sent that over to Doc, and we made those changes. We sent it back over. More comments. We sent it back over. We looked at it again. I said, okay, can you shape this up? And eventually it was done, and we were ready, and it was out. And, you know, that I was very happy about it because graduated from film school, I never knew if I would ever do any work in the field because, you know, I had gone on and got another bachelor's degree in child and family studies and then went on to grad school. And I just thought, okay, that was just a life behind me. And to be able to do this, it was a great experience.
I love that story. I love how you were able to bring those three passions together into the edupreneur. Now, where can people go and watch the edupreneur with their favorite kind of popcorn and a drink? Where can they find it?
Vimeo. It's on demand. You go to Vimeo, just do a search for either, you know, my name or the edupreneur, and you'll find it, and you can rent it. You can also, when you purchase it, you have the opportunity to download it, and where you have a copy with you wherever you go, as well as being able to log back in to Vimeo and just watch it right there, or watch it on the Vimeo app if you have it on Apple TV or Roku.
Nice. Thank you. That's amazing. Now, I know you have this passion for helping teachers when it comes to their entrepreneurial skills. You have a podcast dedicated to it. Why is this an important topic for our teacher candidates that are listening today?
I always tell teachers that, you know, a lot of us, when no one goes into our profession thinking I'm going to buy a Bugatti, right? It doesn't happen. But we should also not approach our profession and thinking we're going to be living off baloney as well. And so what we cannot do is negotiate our salaries, right? We're not going to, well, most of us can't. Now, I guess if you went to a charter school or a public or a private school, you might be able to say, I might need a little something on that. But if you go to a traditional public school, your salary is essentially set by your state and local school board. And it is what it is. So it doesn't matter if you have that 4 rating from your observations, or if you can go back and say, look, I have 150 kids, all 150 passed the state test, and half of them scored a perfect 5. I know it says I make 46,000, but I'm gonna need 50 next year. That's not going to happen, right? You can't do it, right? It is, your salary is what it is. So because of that, if you want and desire to get more income, which I would tell all people, you know, we live off of this thing called money, that, right? You know, you need it. How do you bring in additional income when your salary is set? Plus, we're also in a situation where our field is changing. You know, it used to be where you became a teacher unless you hit a student or did something really stupid. You could die a teacher, right? You'd be there forever. But now there are budget cuts happening, and they could lose a teacher unit in your area, or you could be an academic coach or someone like me with my position. I almost lost my job 3 times because of budget, right? So it could be something like, we don't know. Literally, I was told, we don't know if we're going to have money for y'all positions. And there were 2 of us at the time. And I was the only one that came back. So, yeah. And it happens. I know someone else who is part of that Edu Celebrity group and who was in my documentary, who had my same position and who was told, we're not going to bring that position back. And so it happens. And when you rely upon your district to be your sole source of income, and especially when you have children, that can put you in a bind when you don't have income coming in. And so I'm all about teachers and all individuals, but especially, you know, this is my tribe, for you to monetize your talents and take what you're doing. Because a lot of, you know, again, most of us, because we don't do it for the money, the whole talk of money and doing this for money is off-putting for a lot of us. And I've had people come at me a little crazy, you know, and, you know, like one cat was even like, Will, you keep talking about this money. What you do, is everything with you about money? Would you do anything for money? And I was like, look, you need to slow your roll first. Like, look, I'm not the one. But I told him, no, I don't do anything for money. I just told him that I know my worth. And I also know that with a lot of these conferences that we go to, particularly those that I will not, you know, call out their names, but when you look at their registration costs and you're like, oh my goodness, and you look at the airfare and you look at the hotel that's involved, you start to go, somebody's making some money around here. And when you start to present and you look at the lineup and you see everybody's presenting, you go, this conference wouldn't be anything without the teachers, right? The educators who make up this conference, who present this, but they're not getting paid, but somebody's getting a check. Then you start to really think about, okay, now where does my value really lie? And then you get to that point where someone may approach you and say, you're nice. You know, I love what you're doing. You're great with students, or you're doing this. I see you on Twitter, you're blogging, you have this podcast, which you present at our conference. And a lot of us we get excited and it's flattering, and then all of a sudden we find ourselves just presenting and doing all this stuff, and you're not getting a check, or you become an ambassador for a program, and they'll give you a t-shirt and a thumbs up, but what are you doing? You're presenting at conferences, and you're doing Twitter chats for these people, and you're doing all of this stuff. Again, somebody's getting paid, but you're not. And it's like crazy. Like, I was the GEG leader for Google, and Google Educator Group leader for Google. And Google has these, every state has one, I think some other countries. And I never got a check, but Google expected me every month to put on some event. Right now, normally, well, it wouldn't be on Google's cost. Google didn't put up any money. Most of mine were free because I would just do an interview and submit the link to Google and tell them, there was a whole form to fill out too every month. Who was there? What happened? What did you do? All that sort of thing. And I didn't get a check, but I was doing this work for Google. But again, when it first happened, I was excited because they chose me. I was like, oh my gosh. It was kind of sexy to say, I'm the GEG leader from Mississippi. You heard. All right. Hey, but I didn't get a check, but I had to do the work. No, it wasn't. And that's when, I started to be like, I started to sort of re-examine my relationship with companies and relationship with some of the things that I was doing. And I told Google, I'm out. And that was like my first sort of like, okay, this won't be done for free sort of moment. And things really started to crystallize after being asked by someone at a conference, sort of, what are your rates? And going, what? Because I had no idea. Yeah, like, what do I do? What do I do? So after that conference, I called up Eric. I said, hey, what's going on? And I was blessed to have him be able to kind of walk me through, what does this thing look like? And had that information, so I knew what to say. And to be somewhere, literally at a conference, and I believe it was ISTE, and I'm sitting in this person's session, and I'm like, okay, it wasn't terrible, but she wasn't a unicorn. And when I say that was, I'm thinking, if she's getting a check and she's doing this, something that I would normally do myself, right? This is not an out of the ordinary experience. Like, I'm not sitting in front of Oprah receiving some Oprah-ness that I would not normally get. If she's getting a check, Will is about to get a check. And once that sort of realization hit me, I was done. I had completely shifted my mindset about asking for my money. From presenting at conferences and seeing so many of our colleagues on Twitter and all of this stuff, that a lot of us, we do a lot of work for these companies and these conferences for free. And, I'm going to tell people, a t-shirt is cool, but I can't pay my light bill with a t-shirt. So I'm over the swag. That's just how it is. Though if Dr. Sarah gave me like an EduMatch bomber jacket, I would wear it all day, right? The vanity of being able to say, I'm this, I'm that, I rep this, I rep that, I rep that. You're like, some people, they're like NASCAR drivers with so many of these things that they rep. And I'm like, where's your check? Because if you're doing that for free, what you're doing is you may be building a certain brand or expertise, but you're putting money in their pockets, because the people who follow you, who go to your sessions, who then go back to their district and say, wow, this session was dope, you need to check this out. If you are able to convert, in a year, 10 schools because of the work you're doing, that is tens, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars they just earned for free without them having to do any marketing, any legwork, nothing, because you took your genius, you took your experience, you took what you were actually doing with their product, changing the lives of students, and using that to create all of these stories, whether it be vlogging or blogging, a podcast, presenting at a conference, participating in a Twitter chat. You were able to create this narrative for them that they benefited from, but you didn't. And by the way, all of that time that you are presenting at conferences, you're blogging for them, you're blogging about them, you are participating in Twitter chat for them. What are you not doing? You're not investing in yourself. You're not spending time with your children or your spouse or your family, but you're spending that time with someone else, doing something for someone else that you are not having that benefit from. And that is where I started to get like, all right, people, let's reassess what's going on and where we're spending our time. Like, are you investing in you? And so if you hear that, I was kind of like, okay, break free, people, break free and do for you.
That is such a powerful, passionate why. We need to think through, like you said, with your own genius. How can we live the life that we deserve, live our best life, like you say, with our own talents, gifts, and our own genius in an online space. So what are some ways that we can get up and running? How do we even get started with this? So we listened to the why, we're ready. Maybe we have a few ideas in our back pocket. Maybe we're like, I don't know what to do, but I'm excited and I want to do something. Where do we even get started, Dr. Will?
Well, you want to look at, again, like, what do you want to be known for? What are you known for? Meaning, when you're looking at your passion, when you're looking at your knowledge base, your expertise, your education, what are people coming to you for? So if other people are coming to you and they're like, man, that lesson plan, I like the lesson plan. Can I get it? Or they see you working with that student that they're going, oh my goodness, right? Because there are students that teachers every year, when August roll around, they go to their roster because they're trying to find out if that student is in their class. Yeah, like, oh my, they're like, whew, I didn't get them this year. They're like, sense of relief. But there's always that teacher or those teachers who get those students that they don't have any problems from. Mm-hmm. So what are you doing differently in your classroom that student is well behaved, focused, engaged, that other teachers aren't? What are you so in love with that you get lost doing? You'll tell yourself, I'm going to spend 15 minutes on it. 3 hours later, you're still working on it because you've lost track of time because you just love it so much. So you just want to look out for those things. And from that, I would start building out content. And I would do, of course, free content, right? And so that's when you want to start, giving talks, whether it be presenting at conferences, presenting at local organizations, local schools on that information. You want to start a podcast, or you want to put together an ebook or worksheets or units. And because what you're trying to do is build social capital. And you need to do that before you try to build your wallet. Like, people need to know who you are because you have to build that like, know, and trust factor. And that's where, coming out with that free content, because, one of the killer people in the game with that free stuff is Matt Miller. When I look, I downloaded his this the textbook stuff with all this Google stuff that he sign up for my email list to get this for free. Man, you want to say that was my guide, my textbook for building out my G Suite course. I was like, I'm using this stuff right here, daddy. And there were certain exercises he did, like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. That activity is actually in my course, where I have teachers. I'm like, hey, take this template and build out a lesson with this. And I'm like, wow, okay. And so when you're giving this content away, giving this knowledge away, giving knowledge that teachers can, and not only I'm just giving away stuff, but knowledge that teachers can take today and use tomorrow. That's when you're building the people who are going to rock with you. Because what happens with a lot of people, and you'll hear a lot of people sometimes, they'll say, hey, let me show you, and it's more so in business, which if you want to get in this game, you got to learn the business end. But you'll hear people who say, let me tell you how to take your followers from 0 followers to 1,000 followers in 2 days or a week, or all of this stuff. And the reality is, and Sonny Lenarduzzi will say this as well, you got to find people who are going to rock with you. And that goes beyond your follower count. So you can look up and I think I have about 12,000 followers on Twitter. All 12,000 people aren't rocking with me. And when I say rocking with me, I mean, when I put those people who rock with you, those are the people that when that podcast go out, they're one of the first group to listen to that podcast. When you put a webinar out, they're there. When you are signed up, when you're offering that course, the thing that course that costs, they pay the money. And so the key is not your follower count. It's the people who are going to rock with you. Because it doesn't matter if you have 1 million followers, if only 15 buy your t-shirt. You just got a fan club. That's all you got. You don't have a business. And so that's one of the things I tell people is to make sure you are able to start from that. And then you want to get to the nitty gritty of understanding what you're going to provide, how and who. So that means I help plus who plus do what plus how, right? So for me, I would say I help teachers go digital by simplifying the process for how to teach with technology.
I like that. I think that's going to be a great little PDF we can put into the show notes where people can think through their I do, with what, how. I think I missed one though.
Yes, well, I was like I help who do what plus how, right? And so you want to know how, and then you can look at business models as well. So do you work with schools, right? Do you do conferences? Is it B2B, like business, like direct to consumer, right? So are you marketing straight to teachers? Are you doing courses? Do you have a store at TPT? All of those things. And I would tell the teacher, do that too, because you want multiple streams, people. We're not talking about, I'm going to be doing this. Because by the way, as you are talking to teachers about using technology in the classroom, those worksheets that you be putting up in those bundles in TPT, you could be making you some serious coin. And if you don't think TPT is real, they have their own conference, people. There are teachers who are millionaires right now from TPT selling, $10, $15 bundle units. So you can really get out there. And first of all, it's all about, as my documentary says, making the impact. So I'm not trying to tell you to turn into a used car salesman, just to make some money, just to make some money. What I'm telling you is even though the goal is to bring in multiple streams of income, you want to do this right. You want to provide value. You want to stay true and in alignment with why you became an educator in the first place. You want to share the genius from your experiences, the work that you're already doing in the classroom, that you're already being successful at, from what people are already coming to you, asking you about. And the same thing for that pre-service teacher. You have professors that when you're turning in work product who are already going, wow, this is amazing. You already have classmates, right? That when you are getting together and you're talking about assignments, you're doing stuff, they're already asking you, hey, I got to do this lesson plan. I love what you did for this section. How did you do that? Walk me through that. You're already doing practicums and student teaching where people are giving you feedback on what you're already doing well. So you want to take that information and use that as a guide for where you want to go, because you don't want to just do it just to do it, but make sure you have a plan with it. And that's why I go take that genius that you're already being recognized for. And then you want to also, look at the lay of the land and find out what are people, looking for. And for a lot of teachers, let's be real, convenience is everything, which is why TPT is doing it, because it provides teachers with convenience of being able to get that lesson that they can go in and modify and make fit to what they're doing. And so, that would be sort of where I would tell teachers to start.
You've given so much in that question of where to get started. And I think you talked about, you have to know the business end. You have to know where your genius is, where your passion is, where you say you're going to spend 15 minutes, but it's really 3 hours. Let's just be honest. And you just got to find that sweet spot where you enjoy what you do. You're loving what you're doing and you can get paid for it. And I think that's a beautiful blend of those two areas, your education and your passion and that business side. Now, I know that, a lot of my listeners are new to teaching, or maybe they're just starting out with student teaching. In addition to the Dr. Will podcast, are there any resources, YouTube channels, or other podcasts that you recommend them listening to start thinking about and getting started with living their best life, and speaking into their genius and using that in the online space?
Yes, I would check out the YouTube channels for Sonny Lenarduzzi, Jasmine Starr,
great,
and Vanessa Lau. And Vanessa Lau is a former student of Sonny Lenarduzzi. And all of them, really, their YouTube channels really drop a lot of gems on, how are you using Instagram for business, and how do you create an online business? How do you attract customers? How do you figure out your brand? How do you sell
without selling
and what your audience wants, And all of them have podcasts too on Apple Podcasts. So you can actually search their names and then find their podcast and start listening as well. So I always like those gems. Sonny has been on the show.
And I got to go and listen to that now.
Yeah, it was odd. Well, here's my deal. I know I'm not Oprah. So when anyone says,
I was say, okay, has Oprah been on the show and I missed it somehow? Yeah, when did this happen?
Not yet. No, look, when Oprah gets on my show, I'm quitting. I'm just telling my district I'm out.
Done.
Oprah's on the show. I have a new career now.
Yes.
But I'm always just like floored when people say yes to being on my podcast. But again, I'm not Oprah, right? I don't see myself as that type of dude. And so when I reached out to Sonny, and I think it was like the second time for my ask, and I told her what I was doing, what I wanted to do, and she said yes. And I've had Kelly Hoey on my show, Charlene Lee on my show. I've had Kara Golden. If you drink Hint Water, people, that's her company, founder, CEO. Right.
Nice.
So I've had, a bunch of people on the show, and I've done it long enough now to where I know who I am as a podcaster, what I'm trying to do. And so I don't have the same type of nerves. So even if something may creep up, I may go, okay, Will, you got this. And I go about my business because
You got this.
I'm not trying to, well, thank you, alhamdulillah, but I'm not trying to be anyone else.
Right.
You know,
Oh,
and I really learned that lesson from being in a room with Tom, because he gave a keynote and I'm looking around the room and people have out tissue and they're just wiping their eyes. And I'm like, am I a psychopath? Because I'm not having this type of emotional experience here. And I was just like, Tom is killing it. I'm like, he got folk over here like they're at a wake or something. Like, what is going on? And when I saw Tom do what he does, I said, I will never be able to do this ever. And there is no reason for me even to try this, that I just need to be me.
yes. Be authentic. Be you.
And once I let go of the idea of the performance of whatever you're doing, everything sort of just kind of fell into place. And then I just started, doing my show, and I just do what I do. And then I've just taken that whole embrace everything about yourself, including the mess, to my job.
That's hard. That's hard to embrace sometimes there, Dr. Will, the mess. But Dr. Will, where do we go to find you and all the awesome stuff that you are doing to help teachers, educators, and entrepreneurs?
You can find me on Twitter at I am Dr. Will. That's where I spend, most of my time. Yeah. I'm on LinkedIn. You can also go to Apple Podcasts and just search for the Dr. Will Show podcast. You'll find me there. I drop 2 episodes a week. And I literally bring on educators and entrepreneurs to talk about, how do you live your best life? Some episodes will be on creating a business or how they went about their entrepreneurial journey. And some episodes will be about, discovering your passion or your purpose or, nutrition. I have an episode I haven't released. It's with a board certified cardiologist, and we're talking about living a plant-based life. And so that'll be coming out. And I've done a show on yoga, and that'll be coming out soon as well. So it's really about me sort of in doing what I'm doing, envisioning, educating the whole teacher so that they create the life for themselves where they're not looking on that calendar and circling spring break and circling Christmas break and circling the summer, but living a life that they're so excited about that those holidays creep up on them. And that's what I'm trying to do with my podcast.
And it's a beautiful mission that you have here. I love how you're just giving teachers, I don't know if permission's the right word, but the ability to dream beyond their teaching career, and where can they have an impact that's meaningful, passionate, and just excited to make a difference in the world. And Dr. Will, you do that every day on your podcast. When you show up in other people's shows like this one, you just bring that energy and that passion for impacting teachers everywhere. And I just want to thank you for that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you bringing me on, Doc. You're really doing it with your books and your podcast and your teaching. I see what you're doing. And I'm like, man, I want to get to that higher ed. They won't let me in yet. Yeah.
It's a great place to be. It's a great place to be. I really enjoy working with future teachers, and I know that they're going to just eat this episode up. They need to get their coffee and their pen and their paper, though, because you dropped so much information in here. I know I'm going to have to go back and listen to it, make sure I got all the links and everything. Dr. Will, it was an honor and a pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much.
Thank you for bringing me on.
There you have it, EduMagicians. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with your friends. For more EduMagic, check out sfessage.com and follow Dr. Sam on Twitter and Instagram at sfessage. Until next time, you have the EduMagic within you.